Now, Russia's war machine is on an overdrive. Moscow claims a wave of massive group strikes against Ukraine, but Kiev has hit back with its drone attack on Russia's major oil refinery in Krasnodar Krai. Just as the bombs continue to rain down, Russia itself appears to be in a bit of a turmoil. It is grappling with one of the worst fuel crises in years. Our next report tells you about the escalating firestorm in Russia.
Sirens blare across Ukrainian skies. Russia unleashes massive group strikes. A barrage of high-precision weapons and unmanned attack drones pound Ukrainian cities through the night. Explosions light up the horizon, shaking buildings and shattering lives yet again.
The overall losses of the Russians in our Dobropilya counteroffensive alone are already more than 3,000, and most of them are irretrievable losses. It was there that the Russians wanted to make one of their significant breakthroughs on the front line, but our forces are neutralizing them, and that is important.
Kiev is striking back with precision. Ukrainian drones are targeting major oil refineries and energy infrastructure deep inside Russia. In less than 2 months, Ukrainian forces have struck 85 high-value targets in Russia. The strikes have pushed Russia's gasoline and diesel supplies to breaking point. Ukraine is using long-range drones to strike strategic energy facilities. It is reaching further into Russian territory than any point since the war began. At least 16 of Russia's 38 oil refineries have been hit since the beginning of August, some of them repeatedly targeted. Among the most significant targets is the massive 340,000 barrel per day refinery in Ryazan, located near Moscow. Other key refineries struck in recent weeks include major plants in Saratov, Novokuybishevsk, Volgograd and Bashkortostan. On September 18th, Ukrainian drones managed to penetrate deep into central Russia to hit the Gazprom Neftekhim Salavat oil refinery and petrochemical plant in Bashkortostan, about 1,400 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. That same day, a second strike targeted one of Russia's largest oil refineries in Volgograd, nearly 1,000 kilometers south of Moscow. The scale of disruption is unprecedented in Russia. Experts believe Ukrainian attacks have disrupted over 1 million barrels per day of Russia's refining capacity. Fuel crisis has hit the domestic market quite hard. Russia, the second largest exporter of diesel in the world, is taking drastic steps to conserve fuel for domestic use. While diesel exports have fallen sharply, Russia has banned petrol exports till the end of this year. Among all the regions, Crimea has been worst hit by the fuel crisis. Around 50% of gas stations in Crimea have halted sales due to the lack of fuel. While the timing couldn't be more devastating for the Kremlin, Russia is already reeling under its biggest fuel crisis in years. Long queues at petrol stations, soaring diesel prices, and industries struggling to keep wheels turning. For millions caught in between, the price of this war is only climbing higher.
Several days ago, we had some difficulties. Yesterday, I queued for about 40 minutes to fill my tank, but I don't see anything critical or serious for me personally. I'm not panicking. I believe everything will stabilize. Everything will be fine.
I came to this gas station to see if there was any petrol. It appeared yesterday. Before that, for several days, there was no petrol at any station. It was a problem.
Massive strikes, exploding oil tanks and fuel shortages. Russia and Ukraine are both turning up the heat. The big question is, how much longer can Moscow sustain this war while battling a crisis in its own backyard? Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got Mr. Ben Aris, who's the founder and editor-in-chief of BNE Intel News and also the former Moscow bureau chief of the Daily Telegraph. Mr. Aris, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Now, this is a rather paradoxical situation. where Russia, which happens to be one of the biggest producers and exporters of hydrocarbons, seems to be experiencing a shortage of fuel. Is the Ukrainian strategy working here?
Well, it is, in so much as they've targeted high-value targets, oil assets in particular, refineries in particular, with their new long-distance cruise missiles, and they're trying to do some real damage to the very thing that makes Russia its money, that's paying for the war in Ukraine. And it's been very successful. I mean, as your correspondent reported, 85 refineries have been hit, and many of them multiple times. And this is new. The war has gone into a new phase, that Ukraine until now has been fighting the war on its own territory, but in the last month, since about August, start of August, that Ukraine has decided to take the war to Russia. And now it's firing missiles, not only long-distance drones, which it's already developed almost more than a year ago, but now it's got increasingly powerful cruise missiles that it's producing itself, particularly this new missile called the Flamingo, which has a range of some 2,000 kilometers and has a payload 10 times the size of what a drone has. And they're hitting the refineries, and that's partly because the Western strategy so far has been to sanction oil exports from Russia in order to stop the Kremlin earning money. However, those sanctions have largely failed. Russia, with its shadow fleet, has found ways around it. And Kiev has got fed up with that, and they've decided to take matters into their own hands, and they're blowing up Russia's refineries. And as your reporter mentioned, this has sparked a fuel crisis within Russia, that they've imposed an export ban, which cuts money off from them. Right. Some 20% production has been reduced already.
You know, it's interesting that Russia has banned the export of fuel until the end of this year. Now, considering that one of the big drivers of Russia's economy that the West accuses has been fueling this war is the money that it makes off its hydrocarbons, how do you think that is going to shrink Russia's resources that it has available to it? Because the nations that it is selling its oil to will also be looking at the certainty or the uncertainty of Russia's ability to, provide that oil that these nations want to purchase.
Indeed, but the issue, I mean, it's going to hurt the budget, the income that Kremlin earns, but not too badly, in so much as what's been hit is the refineries, the refined products, which is a big part of Russia's exports. But all they're doing is they're shifting from, diesel and petrol and air fuel, kerosene, and they're just simply increasing the amount of crude oil that they're exporting, because the production at the wells hasn't changed. And it means they make slightly less money on it. Crude oil is like half as valuable as refined products. Nevertheless, you're still shipping massive amounts of crude, and it's just fallen on other countries like India, China, which have refineries, to do more of the refining work. So it's not a game changer. The Ukrainian strategy is to bleed Russia of money, to reduce the amount of money. But unfortunately, it's not going to really heavily impact Russian finances, because they can still make money from exporting more crude than they would have done otherwise.
Interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Harris, for joining us with that perspective there.
My pleasure.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.